Hello, good evening, everybody. This is Gonzalo. I'm the district interpreter. If you ever know of any Spanish speaker who wants to come in and know what happens in here, please let them know that there is interpretation available. We post that on Facebook every time, and hopefully one day. Thank you very much. Habrá siempre interpretación en español en todos los eventos del distrito, así que si conocen a alguien que quiera venir a escuchar qué ocurre aquí, siempre será más que bienvenido. Muchas gracias.
Okay, let's go ahead and go live. We good? Okay. Let's call to order. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first I want to talk, Roger Nyquist isn't here tonight because he's feeling sick. No big votes tonight, so I think we're just going to have him on the phone and available if need be. But that's why he's not here tonight. Can I get an approval of agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
All second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, district leadership, team update, superintendent report.
I think we have board business first, Chairman.
We sure do. Nothing listed under it, though.
Okay. So we have a quick report. I just want to share just a couple of things. Number one, obviously we are navigating right now through state law and federal law and executive orders. And one of the things that I think is really important that you guys understand is the district's commitment to continuing to serve kids, continuing to wait until we hear guidance from the state. One of the things about the U.S. Constitution is rights are reserved to states where laws are made here. We also want to make sure that we serve all the kids in this district, but we also want to respect the laws of the federal government where they are applicable as well. This will sometimes mean that we're a little bit reserved in terms of our understanding of them, but we will want to make the right move a few moments later than the wrong move immediately. And so we do have a lot of groups that are guiding us in that work. We will continue to do that. Should we have a power outage tonight, we will suspend the meeting and move items to the next agenda. I don't believe there's anything time pressing tonight. No one should be looking for the breaker box.
What?
We have our fourth full day of our Center for Educational Leadership training tomorrow. This occurs with a group of about 50 people, 22 administrators, a teacher on special assignment, or a classroom teacher from each building. We're working tomorrow on a very foundational skill assessment, and it will work in concert with the purpose of the lesson, which we learned last month. We will continue to move through this year. We are also spending a lot of time on our administrators because administrators have to know this and know how to work with people so that we can get people to be reflective and continue that. So that work will continue tomorrow, and looking forward to that as well. I did not put on the agenda tonight a motion or a proposal to add the day back that we lost for weather. There is still more weather to come, and it may change our conditions, but as it is right now, there was not energy among you to add days, and I think that we always have to remember our load on people. We have gone almost the entire makeup of the days lost, student days lost, because you'll recall we missed days before Thanksgiving. And this is going to be, and has been, a tough semester of no 3-day weekends. This is a long piece of work, and we also need to recognize by the time we get done with this, it will be time to take a break. An addition of 1 day would mean that 1 week in June, we would have the Monday following, that would be the 1 day that we would come back, and that generally does not lend itself to great attendance. That's all I have. We're going to move on to Jane, financial report.
Okay. Good evening. So tonight I'm going to give you what I believe is a first rough draft projection for 25-26. So I wanted to start with our student counts. And as you can see, we're kind of on a steady decline. And just Friday, I received an update from ODE that 24-25 decreased further. They do that based on second period ADM, and they run a calculation based on the changes between second period and the end of the year based on our prior years. And so what you're seeing, the numbers, is average daily counts weighted. So it's a decrease across the 5 years of 308 students. And so I started with the ADM because that drives everything. That's our funding. And so the financial update, I just wanted to give you some disclaimers before I show you the red numbers. First of all, ODE will be giving us a lot more information as we do this. Like next week, we're supposed to receive statewide numbers. What's the statewide ADM at this time? They'll redo that number based on everything that they've received from all of the districts. And so they'll give us the statewide projected taxes. That information will hopefully improve the data that we have now. All of my projections are based on what I see for 24-25. And the expenditures I did are based on the FTE we have for 24-25. So this is just the resources across time. And you can see I projected at the 11.37, which is the governor's, that's the $1 billion level of statewide funding the governor is proposing. And we're hoping that that will increase. For every change, like if it went from 11.3 to 11.4, that would be about $730,000 to us. And so the next line across is the beginning fund balance. You can see for 24-25, we're at 16 million. It will drop in this financial scenario based on everything I see for 24-25 right now, drop to 13 million. And then in 26-27, it will go down to the 8% of 11 million. And local resources is mainly our property tax. That increases across the years about 3%. County School Fund is just what it is, 90,000. And the ESD Transit is our Tier 2 services. And you can see 23-24 was zero. We did not receive our transit funds. I was working on changing that process. So that will be 600,000 across the next 2 years, which will help us out. And then it will go back down to our normal range of about 400,000 in 26-27. And then our state resources, so the basic school support, that's what are paid to us based on our student counts and all of the weights. And so you can see it increases between 24-25 and 25-26 by about 4 million. And again, between 25-26 and 26-27. But the reduction in that beginning fund balance definitely has an impact on that. So what does it mean? So our expenses are increasing and our revenue is not increasing at the same rate. Health insurance increases based upon our bargaining with licensed and classified are around 3%. So that's estimated at $527,000. The COLA increases from the bargaining salary schedules, 3.8 million. Step costs, the step's kind of a guess because it's a little bit harder to calculate all that, but 600,000. And then PERS increase, our rate for tier 1 and tier 2 is about 4%, and that equals 2.5 million. And so not included are potential grant reductions or potential revenue increases from the state. So remember, it's a really rough estimate. I believe that the more information we receive, the better it will look for us. And like I said, next week we'll get additional information. And there's a lot of work yet to do. We haven't started yet to meet with our principals or our grant managers or our directors. So all of that will be coming. And we'll review all non-salary budget expenditures. And we may implement a hiring freeze. And we've yet to review the substitute and unemployment costs. So that will be some of our next steps. We're looking at maybe working with our principals and trying to increase our ending fund balance by saving some of our budgets through the rest of this year. So this is the chart that was at the beginning of my presentation that I moved to the end because I knew that you would just focus on the negative 6 million. And the negative 6 million takes the resources from the top and subtracts the projected expenditures. So the difference is 6.1 million projected for 25-26. Do you have questions for me?
I do. Well, or more of a comment. I mean, I saw as you were going along until we got to the bottom is what you're describing is the classic squeeze. We're reducing revenue while increasing expenses, and the red ink is the only possible outcome. And especially when we don't have a way to raise more revenue, we're totally reliant upon the state and what they can fund us at. It's, as I've said before, it's quite concerning.
One piece that our ADM has been reduced for these scenarios, but the statewide ADM has not in this scenario, nor has the dollar amount per student been changed, which should go up. And so that's why I said it's very, very rough, incomplete information, probably worst case scenario, I would think. But in a declining enrollment where we're paid for by our student count, it is challenging.
Yeah, my math came up to a quick 2% reduction in 1 year of ADM. Mm-hmm. So, if that trend line continues, it's not a fun scenario.
No.
I do not foresee, even with improvements on the inputs, even with improvements to the inputs on this equation, there's many that still need to be adjusted. I don't see how we would avoid being in some form of cuts this year. We're not going to take that 6 million negative and take it to even.
I didn't want
There
to
was
use that
still-
word, but yeah.
Yeah, it's very unlikely. And we do see that. I think LBL is going through it. Corvallis is certainly going through it, probably steeper in terms of enrollment decline.
They're actually going to decrease, not hiring freeze, but
Well, their student total is decreasing.
Right.
Ours is decreasing, and so, but we'll know a little bit more as we go forward, and there's certainly some things here that the state will have to come up with some numbers. Jane's talked about the statewide enrollment will be important.
And I would dare say that there's very few districts not facing very similar or worse situations than we're in. I mean, Jane, you've done absolutely fantastic at keeping us apprised of what's going on. I mentioned in several meetings that this is coming because you've shown us the numbers.
Right.
And at least now we can be prepared and we can make it the softest possible landing we can make it.
I've read some things that the state overall lost quite a few students.
Yes.
So we're still below what most are, but the concern is, and it's a legitimate concern in our community, is, the capture rate for K to 12 student age kids is less, right? They're going to private schools. Private schools are expanding. We are not, right? We've taken a decrease, and so that's something we all need to be aware of. I think it's, we planned well ahead to save some money and go negative here to give it to the teachers and the staff because that's where it should go. But there's also some limits because we can't go negative to the point that we have to take huge cuts. One thing that you mentioned so you said on there that it was 2.5 million extra in PERS costs.
Yes.
That's not the PERS cost. That's just over and beyond what it normally is, correct?
That's just an increase.
Okay, so if you had to estimate of 133 million, how much is for PERS cost?
It's a percentage of payroll, which is.
It's a number that goes with
Yeah,
that.
we would have to calculate that.
You could give me something if you wanted to.
I'd rather not.
I understand you'd rather not. I think it's important to discuss what that number is.
Yeah.
It's a
So-
big number.
So 30
I
million?
do
Probably
need to bring
14,
you
15.
back PERS information because we are also facing where our bond will be expiring. And we have a year, I believe 26, 27, where we are still paying the debt service, but we no longer have the increase from having the funds. And so our credit rating that we receive against our costs goes away, but we still have the debt service for 1 year. And
Right.
so I do need to put all that together and bring that to you.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of concerning. I mean, the overall budget for the state, rough, there's initially came out with, we were at 10.2 before, now it's going to be 11.36, right? That's a huge increase. That's like 11%. What comes out a week later is, what? PERS costs are going to increase 670 million. So you just took, 70% of that increase away. So PERS costs is something that affects us, and we need to talk about it. Not that we shouldn't pay it. We should pay it 100%. That is a requirement. That is a guarantee that we've given. But it's unfair to not understand that, we're not getting 11% increase from the state over the next 2 years. We're getting like 4% because 7 of that 11% is going somewhere else, right? And that's not improper. It's just truth, So that money doesn't exist. I mean, we wish we could have given more to the teachers and the rest of the staff. The reality is, as you can see, we're going negative to do what we are doing already, right? And it's a tough situation, especially with decreasing students, our capture rate going down for what students are actually coming here. There's a lot to consider, so.
Will we have a better idea of capture rate before budget committee? Is that something that'll come out before then, or is that after that point?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So this year, probably more than any other, we are spending time. Susie's already developed what would look to be a normal capture rate. We're spending time, Bruce is working with Becca just around direct marketing to preschools this year. So we're spending a lot of time on the kindergarten number, but we also are going to need to do some work to really dial in on what the private schools of the community's plans are in terms of their expansion, and what that might do to our numbers as well. So we've got some work to do, just to come up with a realistic assessment of the number of kids we will have in school this next year. So typically, they don't expand massively each year, but we do have to watch that.
So 3 years ago, when Saxon was still here, we did a, live bursts and all that, and we got the numbers, right? And we estimated what our student rate was going to be using the capture rate. And the capture rate is if there's 10 kids, right, that are K through 12 age, how many of those are actually coming to public schools, right? So we took an old capture rate. The reality is if that capture rate changes, so does your students, right? And if your student number changes, so does the amount of money you get as a district. Now, we have been fortunate since COVID not to decrease as much as Salem or Portland or others, but we are also taking some pretty big cuts because people are going, they're taking other options, whether that be homeschool, whether that be private, and that's something as a, financial steward, you have to consider. Okay, Jane,
I do have 2 more slides.
oh, are you going to share with me a guess on PERS?
No.
Okay, I am going to ask you for that during our budget meeting at minimum.
I will bring that to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, as you know, we've been looking at Genuine Food Company for our food service, and this is a projection based upon the RFP proposal received from Genuine Foods. And so the resources for 25-26 are based on what they believe would be the state rate paid for the students. And they are projecting an increase in participation, but also they did it conservatively because we will receive the CPIU increase on our payments, and they did not include that. And the expenditures are based on the classified salary schedule with an increase to compensate for what we believe might be required changes to FTE if we went to a company like Genuine Foods. So you can see the ending fund balance does go down to 1.5, but ODE tells us that our ending fund balance should not be greater than 3 months of expenses. For 2 years, since COVID, we have been investing in capital expenditures, buying kitchen equipment to try to get the ending fund balance down. And the 1.5 is where it needs to be. So that is what a financial picture would look like if we were to go to Genuine Foods. And this slide just kind of tells you what I already just told you. Do you have questions about that?
No question.
Thank you.
I'm going to expand a little bit.
Right, I figured. Dave, food service update.
Hey, Jane, you want to pass me the clicker? So it's been a while since I updated the board on this, about a month or two. So I want to get you fresh. Next week, you're going to have some materials in your board packet for you to review. So I want to just review the history that we have gone through here. So if you remember back in December, we had a leadership change occur with Sedesco. And in the month of January, I formed a collaborative group of staff members to look at this change and look at our program. They quickly identified some concerns, mainly about the variety of menu items and the quality of food. That group came to consensus, and they went out and wanted to go out and explore other options available to the district, and we did that. I'm also using this group to identify any type of other identified needs we have to improve our program. Jane just mentioned one of them. We've accounted for that in the financial picture as well. So we did a market analysis. We did invite Genuine Foods to do an on-site visit for 3 days. We asked all staff to be invited to participate in presentations, and I'll share the results of their slide. We actually had them score and give feedback on their presentation as well. So in February, we have an RFP that was approved by the ODE as a 1-year temporary emergency contract. That was approved by them. We provided that RFP to Genuine Foods. Here's my update to you, to the board now. And then in March, you're going to have some documents for you to review in their next board packet. And Genuine Foods will be on site in March to have a presentation and answer any questions that you have. So here's the staff results. They're pretty one-sided. Do you agree that it's time to make a change in food service provider? All attendees voted yes. Have you seen a decline in the quality of food products? All the answers were yes. What level of confidence do you have that Genuine Foods can meet the needs of our goals? We had 5 being highly confident, 18, 4, so 5 and 4s, pretty good scores there. And then I summarized the next question. What do you believe make the biggest improvement to GAP's food service program? And I summarized these in a chart for you. It was consistent. Menu improvements in the food quality and consistency. And that's what they felt would be the greatest improvements. So just a quick summary of that. Really looking for this program to have higher quality food with the transition to scratch cooking. You'll hear more about that in our next board meeting. Increasing our participation. I think they have a lot of key strategies to do that, including pop-up satellites at each high school, which will increase participation greatly, I believe. And I think increased job satisfaction for our food service staff is also important. Our group of 6, the collaborative I formed, really want to provide a high product to our kids and do more scratch cooking. They're really motivated to do that instead of just heating up and serving items. And then having a trusted partner that's really committed to success. I was really impressed with Genuine Foods and their commitments to make sure they have success here in Oregon and with our district. So materials in your next board packet will be the RFP, some talking points about the transition, and they'll be here on March 10th. And we'll answer your questions at the next board meeting.
Thank you, Dave.
You bet.
Okay. Go ahead.
Dave, how many choices, so in your pie chart, were those the top 5 of many choices, or were there
This
only
was
5?
this was a summary of the comments that were made. I had 23 written comments by the staff members. I just summarized of which categories the
Okay.
comments were mostly landing in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Board reports.
So we have a couple of slides Bruce has added on to that report. Do you want to hear those now?
Sure.
Or do you want to wait?
No, let's go for it.
Okay, this is regarding middle school sports.
Yeah, so last meeting I had the opportunity to kind of present on the middle school sports program and how we're using the SIA funds for both middle school sports and our clubs and after-school activities. There were some questions that were kind of left behind that I wanted to kind of answer and give you some more information on some work that's been done. So I mentioned that I think that we should take the opportunity to survey students to find out what activities that they're most interested in terms of participation, because it wouldn't make sense to add programming if kids don't want to participate in that programming. In addition to that, we want to make sure that we can hire on-campus staff members to coach. So I included a survey to staff to find out if we offered programming, do we have coaches on campus that would be able to coach those sports? And then I wanted to do a cost analysis of what it would be for each potential program that we might offer based on student interest, as well as share some more detailed expenditures on what we're currently offering. Okay, just to give you folks some more detailed information. There were 1,339 middle school students surveyed. The first question is, are you interested in participating in sports at the middle school? 66% said yes, 34% said no. Of the 66 yes respondents, this was the following information. So it was broken out by season. Different sports were listed by traditional seasons. So in fall, cross country, flag football, and volleyball were listed, and then an open item was given so students could literally list any other sports activities that they might be interested in participating in. Soccer kind of transcended 2 seasons, and I'll explain that later. So of the fall offerings, 13% said they wanted to participate in cross country with 109 responses, 22% flag football with 185, 38% of all fall responses was volleyball, with 334 saying that's what we want to participate in. In the winter season, basketball and wrestling traditionally offered. 50% of all respondents said they want to play basketball at 466. 19% said they wanted to wrestle. And then there were a whole series of, we did offer soccer as an indoor option also in the winter. Spring results, soccer was 42% of 423 students said that that's what they wanted. Track and field at 28% or 243. Top 4 choices overall, basketball, soccer, track and field, and volleyball. So that's what the 1,339 students said they wanted to participate in. Of the 56 staff respondents, we did not get as much response from staff. Here's the breakdown on what staff would be willing to or have been experienced coaching. Cross country was 6, basketball 7, flag football 1. 21 staff members have coached soccer in the past, 8 track and field, 9 volleyball. We had no staff response about coaching wrestling. The 4 individuals, that adds up to 52. 4, I'm not interested in coaching at all. Okay, we definitely need a better staff response to find out what we could generate in terms of coaching interest. And we know we had people that are already coaching track and field and cross country that did not respond. Okay. In terms of the numbers, there were questions about what our expenditures were by school in terms of the money that is given to them. Each of the schools only gets $48,000 for expenditures for clubs and activities. We need to take $2,000 out per school to pay for a district coordinator. So we hire a district level coordinator for our athletics to coordinate cross country and track and field. So of the discretionary spending that they have for sports and activities, this is what our breakdown is by school. If we spend based on our traditionally estimated amount, again, it may be up or down a little bit, we would have remaining around $51,500. So we have underspent this budget a little bit, which lends us to have some money to add programming if we spend along these lines. Okay? That was a question that you'd all brought up last time. I wanted to give you that breakdown so you had clear information. Okay? If you have questions about cross-country transportation, all of those meets happen on the weekends. So we transport kids on Saturdays to go to cross-country meets. That's why they're able to compete in a regional platform. I shared that with you last time. That's around $1,900 cost to the district. There are estimated costs for track to pay for workers, to measure throws, run the sprints, that kind of stuff. So that's where that cost comes into play. Transportation for track is very low. It's $400 for the district, again, because we're only competing within the district and we're traveling from the middle school to Timber. Okay. This is what the breakdown is for the 2 sports that we currently offer. They are offered 6 through 8. What I've done is I've listed the season that they're offered, the cost of coaching stipends. Currently, we have 129 participants in each sport. What's listed below is those that requested, I would like to play this sport. So there were 243 requests for track, yet that's the request. We only have about 129 that participate, so you don't get every requested individual participate. Those are our costs in terms of equipment and or cost of meets. Currently, we purchase a t-shirt for every kid by school for cross country and track, so that's what the shirt means. Meet costs, we have to pay to enter meets, and transportation is included in that as well. So our total cost for cross country district-wide is $36,000. Our total cost for track and field is $41,500. So pretty affordable to run those 2 sports. What I did from that point is I broke down each of the requested sports and when we would offer those. You'll notice that some are 6-8, some are 7th and 8th grade. And I will tell you that all of them have been factored in to be both boys and girls, which is other than volleyball. Volleyball is initially listed as a co-ed opportunity. We could break that out for boys and girls as well. I don't know if we'll generate the number of participants. The other thing is we're going to run into gym space. We may not be able to offer 7th and 8th grade practice, boys and girls, the same season. We just don't have the space to do that. Okay? So those sports that we have both boys and girls offerings, you'll see 16 coaching stipends. and that's where that is generated to, the funds there. I factored in $400 for transportation because in all of these sports, we would compete within our district. Obviously, the costs change for startup in some of these sports. Basketball, pretty easy startup cost, T-shirts and basketballs, which is why that's so low. Wrestling, a little bit more initial expense. I asked the four principals. Memorial does have mats. None of the other three schools do. So we had to factor in the purchase of mats and headgear. For flag football, our initial outlay and cost would include flags, footballs, and of course T-shirts for kids to participate in with the uniform. Volleyball, I don't know how many schools have standards for volleyball to hold nets, so that was factored into the cost, as well as shirts. And then our initial outlay for soccer was some balls, and we don't know how many of our middle schools have adequate goals, or if they do, we need to cross field for practice goals so they can practice on a shorter field and have more kids out practicing at one point in time. You'll see with each of those, I broke down the estimated cost by sport. That includes the startup. Now, granted, year 2 would be a little bit less expensive, but that's the initial capital outlay in year 1 based on those sports. And you'll see the number of requests that were made and the number of kids that we can serve as a max participation rate. So that's also a factor. While 331 kids said that I want to play volleyball, if we run it co-ed and 7th and 8th grade only, we can only have 96 kids district-wide participate. We could probably extend that a little bit if we ran a fall girls season and a spring boys season, which is what they're looking at the high school level right now, as men's volleyball is an exploratory sport through OSAA. Any questions on those figures?
Well, I like seeing numbers. I would say I just dispute a lot of them, but I like seeing numbers since we haven't seen numbers before.
And you can ask questions about the dispute.
Well, $46,000 for mats. I think we have mats.
They're $13,000 for a Resolite mat.
Okay, you know, how do we come up with 16 coaches, 8? I mean, we can make numbers look however we want, and I understand that.
Right.
And I love seeing numbers
Sure.
and compared to no numbers.
Right, and what I said was the 16,000, that would offer a separate boys and girls team at each of the middle schools for 7th and 8th grade. That's why there's 16 stipends there. The only one I left as co-ed was volleyball, but we could break that out, and what you would just do is add $24,000 to the cost because you're gonna double your stipends. It just becomes a matter of gym space and how we would manage those sports.
So I would just simply add this. There are certainly some assumptions on that board, right? Whatever we would begin to look at, I thought that the best news was that there's 50,000 there,
Yep.
right? And then we can begin to work on this, and I would, there's gonna be a lot of learning. There may be more resource in some aspect than we think. As we go into the budget season, that we would be looking to answer those questions and develop a more streamlined proposal. I don't know that, given what Mrs. Knopfziger has told us tonight, that there's room for all, because I would think that one of the costs that would begin to come into play would be you would need somebody to manage more than just a quick, small stipend that can put together a track meet. You would have to have probably some on-site management as well.
All these assume just competing against each other?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this was an assumption that we would be competing during the school week and not running Saturday. The only way we can get out of the district for competition is if it's not during the week. We don't have the capacity to transport to other areas unless, of course, it's, hey, we're leaving at 6 o'clock at night. In order to run our routes, we can't get kids out of the district.
Is that a driver problem or a bus problem?
It's a driver problem.
And there are ways we can work on that?
As it is, the two high schools, I think, each have 3 or 4 12-passenger vans that they use to transport. So they have separate transportation, and that's a lot of their spring sports are transported from school, as well as we prioritize our high school competition because that's...
Sometimes you have people that are qualified and willing to drive athletes that aren't interested in driving kids to school.
100%.
And I don't know what our contract looks like around that, but that might be something to at least consider?
Dave, I believe the last report is we had something like 8 drivers on the bench,
Yeah, those are trip drivers.
trip drivers.
Yeah.
So that's what we have. We have 8 drivers that'll drive trips.
Yeah, we have maybe 6 right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But somebody
but
that's sitting
that
out
is
there
not
right
to-
now says, hey, I'd love to drive a middle school soccer team to Lebanon. Could they walk in off the street and do that if they have
Or
the
we could
right
even
license?
send out some sort of a recruitment,
Yeah, okay.
right, and find people.
And they can do that, and our union agreement wouldn't prevent them from,
No, because they would be part of that union, but they would isolate themselves for just driving trip.
okay, if that,
Yeah.
okay. Sometimes there's a seniority around certain trips thing.
I don't
Except
know.
what we run
That's what I'm
into is, it doesn't solve the problem if we don't have a driver. Like, if
Right.
we're short drivers, no one is losing work,
Right,
right? And
Right.
so it's a matter of trying to find people with that interest.
Yeah, okay.
So what we would put together we would hope that we could add some people.
yeah, good, okay.
We have several volunteers that drive Type 20 buses, which don't require a CDL.
Okay.
Quick question on the max kids served column. Is that something, how did you guys get those?
So what
numbers?
I factored in is, for example, basketball, or we can use any one of the sports, flag football. What I factored in is 15 kids per team. So that's 30 kids at each school, right? Times 4 is our, 60, 7th and 8th grade. So that would give us our 240 students that we could fit into that particular sport, right? It's based on the number of kids you can have per team.
Gotcha.
So if I understand the numbers right, we have about $51,000 left over. We could
Rough.
basically do one, except
That's-
for wrestling is going to be the tough one.
Because of the initial capital outlay. And there may be
Correct.
something that I don't know, but based on what the principals told me in terms of their ability to have mats, we're gonna have to purchase headgear no matter what.
Sure.
And that's assuming that 176 kids that said they would wrestle are going to wrestle, right?
You won't get 100%.
I don't
You
know
won't-
all
you
these
won't see
numbers.
it. Yeah.
I'm assuming max served, and yeah, you're absolutely right, Pete. That's assuming the maximum number of kids we would serve would actually participate.
Right. And you don't know till you offer it. Yeah,
Don't
you just
know.
don't know.
Don't know. The other thing is, do we go against tradition and say, hey, we're gonna run soccer in the spring when we would wanna run track and field? And I don't know if we would make that decision either. We might run soccer in the fall, we might run soccer in the winter as indoor. So those are some decisions that we would have to make, moving forward.
Because we're already running track and field now.
Correct.
Cross-country and track and field are the only 2 we run.
Yes.
And this is the 4th year it's been going. So, I mean, one of the things I definitely want to do is at some point between now and the end of the year, us vote on what sports we want to add and do it. Because we've waited, and it hasn't happened for 4 years.
So, yeah, and again, I would say this is what students responded to. It doesn't mean that every student that said they want to play will play, but I think we have to look at those numbers and honor a request if we want to get the max participants for the sports that we offer. That's just putting that out there.
So I know at some point we quit charging kids to play sports at the high school level. Is that something we'd ever consider looking at again? Because you defray the cost quite a bit if you charge kid $20, $25 for the sport.
That would be a broader conversation.
Okay.
Certainly wouldn't rule it out, Ryan, at all.
Any more questions on this?
Those are the numbers to look at. I wanted to give you more information for you guys to look at and kind of digest, right? And I think that was missing from the last presentation, which is why I put this together for you.
Great. Thank you, Bruce.
You betcha.
Okay, student board members, who's up first?
So for sports, both the JV and varsity cheerleading groups won at their OCCA championships. February 28th, the boys and girls basketball are going to play Central. The girls wrestling team had 3 state qualifiers and 5 regional qualifiers, and the 3 state qualifiers being Nadia Edmondson, Macy Manning, and Cadence Jeffries. This week is Spirit Week, which means we have air guitar and the Blacklight Dance on Friday, and our blood drive is on Thursday. Our career day is on March 12th, and the Sound of Music will be put on March 6th through the 15th.
All right, for South Albany, our South Albany cheer went to state and won first place. Our dance team, or separate GEMS dance team, combined with some South Albany dance members and community members, went to nationals in Florida and won 5th, 8th, and 4th place. We are promoting for our students to take the Seal by Leadership test, and our senior night is happening tomorrow for basketball at 5:30 for girls and 7 p.m. for boys. It will be jersey out. Pizza will be given to the first 100 students who attend to motivate attendance. Our girls and boys wrestling went to districts, and Cassandra Barber placed 3rd among one of the sections. Leif Scoville qualified for state in 200-yard medley last Friday, and we had the unified basketball tournament that past weekend in the OSU Recreation Center. Our Avid Showcase is coming up this Wednesday at 8 a.m. Our student ambassadors, like myself, will be participating and showing pride through our Avid curricular system, and please feel free to join us and register with Ms. Bridgefield. Along with other lines, we have our career day this following after our Avid Showcase, which will be Thursday, to influence and expand our students' minds and dreams about potential career jobs that they may belong to. And we're looking forward to a great start in March.
Thank you. Okay, next up, committee, community, and school presentations. Mental health survey. Andy.
So I want to introduce Mr. Joe Lycum, who last year we engaged Mr. Lycum to examine the mental health of our staff and students. We did include some of his questions on our survey that we did last year of all staff. He also did some other ones. He can talk to you a little bit about the information gathering he engaged in. Want to thank him for coming here to present his findings to you guys. This is just a state of mental health in our district, adults and students, correct?
Indeed.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you for coming.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to be here. Chair Morris, Vice Chair Mattingly, members of the board, district leaders. Let's see where this is at. And there it is. All right. As Andy had just said, my name is Joe Lycum. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and educator. I'm faculty at Oregon State University, where I hold the position as the director of our applied mental health program in the School of Human Development and Family Sciences. I am also a former K-12 educator in the Corvallis School District, where I helped develop and found their mental health program. I've worked across the state doing mental health integration work in multiple districts, both rural and urban, and I really am pleased to be here tonight. I want to say thanks right off the bat to all of the staff and educators who participated in this review. Folks were incredibly welcoming and incredibly engaged, and it was super helpful. So, what we did, oh, that's weird. I wonder why that overlapped there. Okay, well, we're going to move on with that. First off, I was engaged last year by Andy and members of the senior leadership related to the school board strategic plan related to evaluating the mental health of the school district, both staff and students. So for this, I put together a needs analysis goal. We are going to identify the resources and skills present in staff, students, and community agencies related to mental health, assess the current level of mental health distress and acute needs across the student and staff populations, and make recommendations related to district investments and improvements. This was what would be considered a multimodal evaluation, meaning I engaged in both quantitative, numbers-based evaluation as well as qualitative interview, data-based evaluation. We did this through the process of collecting a massive amount of standardly collected information from the school district, everything from enrollment rates to special education data, program stats, budgets, all kinds of stuff, information that you already have at your fingertips. As Superintendent Gardner indicated, we also added questions to last year's TEL survey, received a representative sample of just over half of the population of staff. That survey included quantitative 1 through 5 agree, disagree questions, as well as qualitative information that staff volunteered. From that, we developed a specific structured evaluation for staff members. I received a list of names from your HR director, Ms. Orsborn, and I reached out to approximately, over the course of this, 45 staff. I only interviewed 20 some of them because, well, teachers are busy and we really didn't want to push people into this. Staff were assured confidentiality. I recorded all interviews and coded those and then did qualitative analysis, just really trying to pull out the themes and data. So that's where all the information that I pulled came from. In case you want more information, I'm pretty sure you all have copies of the report. There we go. All right. So first off, before we get into any of the data or observations, I want to say that mental health in school systems is a critical resource. What I've seen here and nationwide is that mental health status, like mental health diagnoses, mental health supports, affect student well-being. This is actually the underlay of social emotional learning, which is the typical term you might hear from your educational staff. Schools are increasingly across the country serving as de facto mental health service provision agencies because of the lack of supports in our other public systems. Oregon ranks near the bottom. We've hung about 45 to 50 in terms of national rankings for youth mental health. And for the last several years running, about half of the youth who experience a major depressive episode get care here in Oregon. So the crisis of mental health ends up at a school's doorstep, whether you want it to or not. Addressing mental health broadly offers an opportunity to reduce behavior and special education crises. Both of those issues stem primarily from mental health concerns, especially behavioral crises. Staff and student mental health interplay with each other. When student mental health decreases, staff mental health decreases. Those behaviors that come from dysregulated students are things that staff members have to come in contact with every day. So the mental health serving system is insufficient to address these needs, especially here in Oregon. And I need to highlight and underline that reality because there are no cavalry coming for this issue. I make this clear to every board and leader that I speak to. I have worked in the public mental health system for over 25 years. I can tell you there's no white horses. So I'm going to start with strengths because there actually are some really tremendous strengths. First off, I want to say your FACT team, the Families and Communities Together team, is an amazing and highly well-regarded program. It is a very small, highly impactful group of folks who are the most common target for outreach from your staff. When they don't know what to do, staff members usually ask their school counselor, who asks a member of the FACT team. And the FACT team reports an incredible amount of outcome data. I included some of that in the conclusion section of the report, and I encourage you to look at all of the different things this tiny team of folks really does. Second, there is an incredibly dedicated staff that you have here in this district. I was privileged in interviews to hear amazing stories of educators going above and beyond, sacrificing their own needs, their own mental health, and sometimes the needs of their families for their youth. These staff work super hard to try and support kids here. I will also say there are some community organizations that serve as a point of light. Jackson Street Youth Shelter is one of them that came up time and time again in the discussion, and they really have shown up and supported gaps in a really strong way. All right, so because this is a little messed up, I apologize. I'm not really sure how that happened, and I want to talk about the barriers. I'm going to hit on two big ones. The first one is inconsistent access to mental health. First and foremost, as much as there are really strong community partners, there are also really inconsistent community partners. I'm not going to name names in here, but the report is quite clear, and I encourage you to read through that because there are partners who are just not showing up in your community, and that is something as elected officials you have influence in. I will also say staff are working incredibly hard to get folks to these services, and parents are also working very hard. I heard that time and time again from FACT members that they were able to get parents to these resources, but often were waiting sometimes as long as 6 months to get in to see a professional or even to get basic resources. When there are connections with places like Ophelia's Place or Jackson Street Youth Shelter, these are incredibly outcome-driven programs. Staff see students change based on their connection there. So if we can get those connections made, it will work, but this barrier in terms of access is persistent. All right, and then the next one is nobody's surprised, it's economic issues. So the economic issues related to housing instability and food insecurity are affecting your kids. There are youth who do not know where they are sleeping tonight and where they are getting their next meal, and they are showing up to school trying to learn, not very successfully. Your staff are working to try and support those youth in those school buildings, and they are coming up short. I heard FACT team members talk about their real discontent when they ran out of resources. They were trying to connect to programs in the community, but these nonprofit organizations are just running out of resources, the same that I heard in your budget discussion. But these youth are spending long periods of time in your schools trying to learn, and your staff are trying to support them with insufficient access. So the three key recommendations that I would really encourage you all to think about as I pulled from the evaluation are: one, expanding and enriching mental health and social supports. I know that budgets are tough. I work with lots of school districts. Lots of folks are talking about the kinds of numbers that were presented to you tonight. I would say that if you really were going to prioritize intervention, small amounts of resources to make a big impact, your FACT team is already making a massive impact. That's a place you could make a very strategic investment to get a big outcome. Mental health staffing is something that I have discussed with Superintendent Gardner and his team. There are possibilities there. That is a much larger investment that would be beneficial long-term. I'm not sure if it's in the short term for your district right now. The second would be to align and coordinate district data and student services. Something that I found throughout the context of the evaluation was that every building is operating very differently. They are often using different definitions for the same processes. They are using different language and different counting measures to compare different systems. That's really tricky. Schools everywhere are a mix between centralized organization and a playful confederacy of buildings. We'll leave it at that. What I see here is the independence that your buildings have and your building administrators operate under is actually affecting the systems that they're trying to deploy. If they were tighter, if they were more unified, you would probably get better outcomes. That's likely to be something that is actually not expensive to change. That is not a large resource you have to put money into, but it is about creativity among district leaders to build good data systems and keep those aligned. And then the last one was something that I heard consistently from staff, and I would bring directly to you as members of the board, which is staff members are really looking for your leadership in this area. Many of them look to you all as the senior folks in the district guiding forward, and they would really love for you to speak up on their behalf and advocate for some of these services. Even if you can't provide those resources, your voices make a difference. All right. What questions can I answer? I tried to talk quick, so I gave you enough time in your night.
Ryan?
Well, so I have at least one. I appreciate the shout out for FACT there. So the reason that FACT is supposed to process all the mental health referrals is to keep the system standardized.
Yep.
So I don't understand why it's not standardized and yet it's still going through FACT, because they themselves are a centralized body, not, I mean, they're assigned schools, but they don't work for schools.
Yeah,
They're centralized.
and that's a great question. They actually stood out as a system that is centralized and have really consistent organization. When I say inconsistent, other systems, Chair Mattingly, the reality that I'm talking about is things related to behavior data, sometimes attendance data, and special education.
I got you.
services.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
thanks for the
appreciate it.
clarification, though.
Yeah.
Not necessarily directed directly at you, but I haven't seen the report yet. Is that something we're going to be getting later, or? Okay, I just didn't see it, so I just wanted to see it and look through it, so appreciate it.
Please,
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm happy to answer questions for the board later. If you want to correspond, my contact information is right there. So,
Appreciate it.
yeah.
What's the percentage of our students that are in need of mental health?
It's pretty difficult to determine. I would say at minimum, the data that I collected suggests that it's about 25%. The reason it's difficult to determine is we're talking about an entire school year looking retrospectively. And those students are not likely struggling the entire school year. Some of them may be struggling in targeted points. When I looked at your staff data, it's about half. Talk about 40% of your staff probably have some level of struggle, a lot of them accessing formalized resources.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that has changed since all of us, other than the two ladies at the beginning, that's not how it was when we were in school.
Yep.
You know, and the funding mechanisms are the same,
Yeah,
right? And so now we're supposed to come up with these tools that our staff and students need, and the funding resources don't exist.
yeah, and that's part of why I tried to be really conservative in terms of my recommendations to you all, because I understand the realities that are here. And I will say, when I have seen school districts make strategic investments in these services, it actually affects student performance. Because your graduation rates, your overall testing scores are drugged down by students who are unable to perform, unable to complete. And if you can support those students to raise them up by offering resources, they graduate. And not only that, they end up being community members who are actually contributing as opposed to struggling with chronic mental health.
Do you think that we're missing opportunities to leverage medical funding, insurance, and that kind of thing to rather than just putting general fund money into it?
I think that the conversations I've had with Superintendent Gardner and the team are really encouraging more Medicaid-based funding services, and I've been doing my best to support that. I think that there could be a strategic plan related to that, and the truth is, getting those numbers up require a very organized system. It's close here, but I think some of the reforms this year that I've seen indicate that it's got some distance to go. I will say it's moving in the right direction.
Brad?
You had mentioned that our data is not suggestions on the top things we could do to try to help bring that in and make that data better?
Yeah, I think the best suggestions I can have are very simple. One, standardized rubrics, schemas, and look-fors. These are often things that district office staff will put together in a given target area. So saying if we're going to track something simple like attendance, here's how we're going to do that. Here's the places we're going to document that information. Everybody does it this way. Some of that information can be done in the student information system, but it would be good to make sure that that's reviewed on a regular basis. A second one that I would recommend is some basic training for some of the leaders and potentially teacher leaders around data evaluation. There's a tool out of Harvard called the Atlas tool. It's looking at data. It's very simple. It's been used multiple times in K-12 education to really just teach educators how to be data oriented and focused. And then the third one is truth here, and I say this as an educator myself, AI. This is a really emergent issue to look at how can you leverage artificial intelligence systems to just extend and expand the work. AI systems can actually take the load off generating some of these reports and doing this work. And if you have trained staff using AI, then they're able to make sure that it's producing accurate information because they're interacting with it. So I would say those are my three big ones.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to all the teachers who participated.
Hey, just kind of got off board when we let the students, board members talk. Board members, anybody, board member have anything to say
What? For what?
for our board reports?
Oh, well, I don't know if this is the right time to say it, but I was going to say, I think I misunderstood our public comment change because I thought we were doing written public comments on the off week, on the off
Right.
meeting. So verbal on the first and written on the second. So
Yep.
that's not what we decided?
I think that's what Ryan, I thought was
Yeah,
happening.
that's what I missed on that.
So I thought we were doing the old way for
Yeah.
days that we weren't doing public comment.
I thought we were taking written
In
public comment
person.
in the second.
So we'll get there.
Yeah, so that's on me if I just didn't read it correctly.
I do,
Go for it.
for me, and Andy approached this a little bit, and who knows what's going to happen weather-wise. We're having missed academic time. We had missed academic time due to the strike. I do think we need to figure out a way to gain it back. How, I don't know. I think we should be unique or try to be creative. Just for us to ask for a waiver to waive it. Any of the articles you see on how we're performing and how our kids are doing, how do we not give them back that academic time? So it's not like it costs us more to give them back the academic time. We're already paying for it. So I just don't see how we do that. So I'm hopeful that we can find a way to do that. Another thing that we kind of addressed when Jane was talking budget, but I do think it's really, really important, is the steady decline of students in public K through 12 education, our capture rate. That is a huge driver. And if you don't see that as a problem, a lot of people I talk to about that say, okay, so they're going to send their kids to private education. That means we have more money for the kids in public. Up to a point, that's true. But at a point, people aren't going to vote like they are now, and they're going to vote for vouchers. They're going to vote for other things. And then we're going to have, those kids, because let's be honest, a lot of the kids that are fortunate enough to go to private education, they're probably not the biggest draws on our budgets, right? And now if we're taking that money and it's going somewhere else, that's an issue. And that's an issue for all of us in leadership and for our teachers and staff and everybody to understand. If we continue to lose our capture rate or public K through 12 age kids, it's going to result in a change in how we, fund public education in Oregon. And public education in Portland, or not in Portland, but in Oregon is very important to our society. So we can't just say, oh, no big deal if they take kids out and take them somewhere else. Because really the only thing that's expanding in Oregon in education is private or homeschool. And that's scary because that means the dollars will follow after a while. And so we need to understand that. Brad, did you have something?
No, go ahead, Pete. Sorry.
Okay. Next up, school report. Bruce.
We have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Jody Dodd to present on Liberty Elementary School.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight. And I want to say thank you to all the Liberty teachers sitting in the back that are here to support. Thanks for coming. So I am so excited to be able to share with you tonight about Liberty Elementary School. So at Liberty, we soar. We are safe, optimistic, accountable, and respectful. And any student at our school will be able to tell you that. So we have 3 goals for this year. Our first one is in reading. And if you take a look at that blue bar at the top, we start out at the beginning of the year with 0 growth because we haven't grown yet for this year. At the end of the year, we want that number to be 100%. Right now, we just took a test at the middle of the year, so that number should be 50%. And ours came out at 77% for typical growth for our school in reading. The second colorful line that's below that has to do with our current placement distribution, and that also is data that's centered around our goal. We want that number in June to be 63% of students who will be green. So that's either on grade level or mid or above grade level. Currently, that number is 52%. And this time last year, that number was 55%. So we have a little bit of work to do, but we missed a couple more weeks of school this year. And so we think that we can make that up with the extra days coming to us. So we are excited because this year we're diving into using the core screener. So up there is information about the iReady test, which we give to all students. But we also take, in order to get those students who are yellow and red up to the green, we need to figure out where their lagging skills are. And so in order to do that, we give them a core diagnostic test. And we use that test to figure out where the gaps are so that in small groups and in reading interventions, we can really strategize on what to teach. So if you were a student who missed, now this is really simplified, okay? This is not exactly science of reading. But if you're a kindergartner and you missed the letter G because you were absent or sick, and you went through the whole year and you never learned the letter G, and we start teaching you a reading intervention that assumes that you already know the letter G, like we need to know that. So the core test, the core diagnostic test, helps us figure out what's missing so that we can quickly patch that hole so that you can be reading on grade level. So we're excited that to be using that data and to be kind of strategizing on our grade level teams with that data. We've also decided, because research shows that writing and reading matter to each other quite a lot, we have integrated reading into every subject, and that includes using writing in math, which is our next topic. So again, you see the blue line at the top of the page, and math is linear, and we teach math throughout the school year, so we should really expect for that number to be 50% in the middle of the year. So we're right on track to where we need to be. In terms of students who are on grade level and above grade level, we have 36% there. And last year this time we had 40%. Our goal is to be at 63% by the end of the year. So we have a little bit of push in math, and the way that we're going to do that is through small groups. We also have done some discussions in our 20% meetings, which look at the bottom 20% of how we might be able to walk to math. So teachers in certain grade levels are giving pre-assessments at the beginning of the math unit and then organizing groups across the grade so that students go and get the foundational skills if they're lagging, or they move up if they need that push. So we're trying to be strategic in that way. And the final thing that we're doing for our math goal is we're utilizing some of our fifth graders. In the morning, we have a breakfast time, and during that breakfast time, not everybody eats breakfast. So it's really great to see our fifth graders go down the hall to kindergarten and first grade and work on numbers with our younger students. And so we're building up leaders, and also our kindergarten and first graders are getting what they need as well. Okay, our third goal is the most exciting. We have divided our school into 4 amazing houses, and those houses earn points for being kind and doing acts of kindness. And so you can see the awesome pictures there of the different houses. And we are really excited because staff members are also divided into the houses, and they are battling for who can be more kind and who can do more kind things throughout the building. So we're really excited about this. It's been effective, it's fun. Staff reports that it's been really good for our school, and so we're excited about that. And it makes our assemblies very fun as well. You can see in the picture the Caught You Being Kind certificates, and those certificates, our goal is to get those certificates on the wall going all the way down to the end of the hall. And when a student is caught being kind, that would be something like maybe they hold the door open for you, or maybe they pick up all the balls after recess. When we catch students being kind to one another, or maybe they're sitting by someone at lunch who might be alone, okay? So when you're caught being kind, you receive a certificate to go home with also 2 superstars to spend in the superstar store. And we have just noticed that having these in the hallway keeps it very visible, and also you earn house points if you're caught being kind, so that helps your house do better. And so I feel like it has created this momentum of kindness, but also just the vocabulary around what does it look to be kind, and it's changing the culture of our school quite dramatically. So last year, we had a number of referrals that were based on like students being mean to other students with disabilities. And we were really bothered by that, and we wanted to figure out how we could make that stop. And part of that is to help students to understand like some scripting of how to be kind to each other and what that really specifically looks like. We adopted a character strong curriculum with the funds from Albany Public Schools Foundation, and we want to just thank them for that because it has been the most amazing thing. It has little cute videos and really great goals for classes, and there's a common goal across the whole school, but the lessons are different at every grade level, so we can use it for every year. So we are really excited about how that's going. In a survey that we gave to our teachers recently, only 4% said that harassment is a severe problem, which is quite a bit smaller than our information from last year, which was 37%. So that's gone down quite a lot. Okay. So for early literacy, I know you've seen this slide for multiple elementary schools at this point, and it looks pretty similar. The first 5 bullets that are up there, other schools are doing those same things for early literacy. But one thing that we're doing differently at Liberty is we're adding volunteers from the community to read with our students every day. Liberty is not a Title I school, so we don't have as many SEAs or aides to help with individual one-on-one or small group reading as many. And so we are creative with members of the community. And so every day we have people come in and read one-on-one with our students. And we also, again, have the 5th grade RAD Readers program in which our 5th graders are reading with kindergartners and 1st graders in the morning before school. So, at Liberty, when you come in the doors of our school, it feels safe, it feels calm, it feels comfortable, and it feels like a loving place, which is what we want. And the reason that it feels like that is because we put a lot of effort into having clear expectations that are aligned between all staff members. And I think Susie came to sub at our school and said it best, that any student can tell you the rules. Any student could run this school and know the expectations of every place. And so that's our goal, is for students to feel so comfortable with the expectations that they can really focus on learning. We have amazing staff members who work hard to follow through with these things. And then also a behavior team that meets regularly to really look at behavior data and strategize and problem solve effectively. So at Liberty, we have some amazing things happening. We have our RAD Readers program. We have Liberty News, which actually isn't on this slide, but I just thought of it. We have 5th graders that are putting together a news video for every Monday. We have Marimba Club with marimbas that were purchased with funds from Albany Public Schools Foundation. We have Liberty Singers. We do Battle of the Books, and we sure have a whole lot of fun. Any questions?
Brad?
Yeah, Jody, thanks. I really enjoyed my tour couple 3 weeks ago. I really had a fun time visiting my alma mater.
Yeah, we enjoyed having you.
Yeah, it was good.
That was nice.
Yeah. One of the things I was excited to hear about is your volunteers. And how did you get that program started? About how many people do you have participating? Something about for other schools, of course, is to try to get some additional intervention in reading.
Yeah. So it's mostly people that I know that I have wrestled into coming in. Many of them are retired folks who want to give back to schools, and so they check in with me when they arrive, and they have a folder with specific assignments to do with those students, because again, we're trying to close specific gaps. So they have folders ready and take their little folder and go pick up their students. Some volunteers stay for 3 or 4 hours and have multiple dates with students throughout the building, and then some just come and have one student that they meet with.
Did you find it difficult to get enough people and to administer this?
I so it hasn't been difficult to find enough people, because we're working with, people spread the word to their friends. And so it's been, I think we have plenty of volunteers and also parents that come in and help us. I think it's an extra layer of responsibility to organize what they will do with the students, but we want it to be really meaningful. And so I just take the time to do that.
It seems like a great way to value add a teacher's time, where you can really focus in on an area that a student needs help with, and the teacher can go on with other lessons. I think that's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, and we, again, we're wanting all those students who are in the yellow zone to move up to green. And so what are the ways that we can just boost that and give as much help as possible? And that one-on-one attention is so valuable when students are reading, so.
And just, Andy, I would love to see if other schools couldn't be encouraged to do this. I think it's a great program.
I would tell you, just because my mom had the experience, she tried to volunteer and it was really hard. Couldn't get in. The only thing she wanted to do was go read. So there for a while we had some hurdles, and hopefully those hurdles have been decreased. I mean, who better to read than a grandma, right?
Yeah.
Come in and read to the
Yeah.
kids, especially
That's
if they're willing
most
to
of
do
our
it.
current volunteers.
Did
are
you have
grandmas.
barriers to entry? I mean, that's kind of what Pete's talking about. Was there, or did you just eliminate them and just invited people in?
So most of the people who are volunteering right now are grandmas. And so they reached out to me individually, and then I just sort of set up a schedule of when they wanted to come in, like every Wednesday or Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then I just set up dates for teachers to sign up different students and then just put the room numbers on there. And so there's probably 6 volunteers right now, and I kind of meet with them maybe once a month just to make sure that they know what they're doing and they're on track. So
That's awesome. Both my kids went to Liberty, and one of the issues we had periodically, and curious how it's going now, is behavioral issues and classroom clears. And I probably didn't have a week that one of my kids didn't come home and report that. How does that go now? Are we having less of those? Are we having more of those? Or
I would
are we
like to
having-
say, yes, we
Yes
are
to
having
both?
less of those.
Okay.
I would say that at Liberty, I think behavior is a point of pride for us. We have an excellent behavior team with a behavior specialist, a dean, and a counselor, and we really are strategically looking at where the issues are and wanting to really problem solve those issues. We started our year with 23 students who were on behavior plans, and right now we have 5. So our goal is to graduate students out and have them being effective as students. So
That's great.
Nice job.
Outstanding.
Yeah, outstanding. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right, Bruce.
Next, we have Ken Gilbert here, Principal Ken Gilbert, to present on Memorial Middle School.
All righty, good evening. Here we go. So at Memorial, we have a vision of challenging and supporting every student through meaningful engagement to achieve academic excellence and responsible citizens who are prepared for high school, since that is our goal. We do this by cultivating positive relationships and utilizing high leverage strategies to try and engage all of our students to learn and grow during their time at Memorial. Our first school improvement goal is around reading, and by June of this year, we are hoping to increase their proficiency in English language arts from 22%, which was last year, to 35% at the end of this year, as measured by the state testing. In a stretch goal, as a district goal of 67% by June of 27. We came to this goal by looking at our SBAC data from previous years, school report card, attendance behavior reports, iReady data, and our parent club. To help us get there, we have some guided colleague instructional walkthroughs. So visiting classrooms, looking at instructional practices, what's going on, and getting that data back to our staff, and then hopefully targeting PD around the data that we collect. We have targeted intervention placements based on our iReady data in 20% meetings, and our grade level core instructional strategy focus, such as explicit teaching of vocabulary, sentence stems to help all students, and more student discourse. Math is our second goal, and we would like to increase from 40% last year to 47% this year. And again, stretch goal is 62% by June of 27. We use the same reports in looking at our goal. Again, real similar action steps. The difference here is the iReady personal My Path lessons. And our math teachers are working on their explicit teaching of math vocabulary, and then connecting concepts to other math concepts, and again, more student talk in the math classrooms around academic work. Goal number 3, decrease behavior incidents. This is a question taken off the Safe and Civil School Survey, which asks, do you believe that student behavior is disrupting learning in the classroom? And so we took that straight off of that survey. And last year, 44% of our students, 72% of staff said that they believe that it is, and we want to drop that down to 40 and 50, and continue to drop that down each year. We are working on SEL lessons through a thing called Project Basics, which is out of the University of Oregon. And we were a control school last year as they were doing the study, and then this year we get to benefit from their SEL lessons and them helping us out. Really trying to work on the why a student is disruptive with the student, like, you know, why did they make that choice, and getting them to reflect on that and understand why they may be doing what they're doing, and seeing if we can connect that to some root causes, and that way we can target that and try and help them improve their behavior. And staff having concentrated efforts to improve relationships and emotional safety in the classroom through increasing student discourse and modeling taking chances in the classroom. Often when you see the reading results outcomes really low, you see a lot of our students aren't able to read, and it's the old adage that a kid would rather look like a jerk in the classroom than be embarrassed that they can't read, and so behavior increases, so they get kicked out, and then they're not in the classroom with their other kids seeing that they struggle with reading and becoming embarrassed. So working on that, modeling taking chances in the classroom, and having a climate of safety for that. Our iReady diagnostics, currently 36% of our students are reading on or above grade level, 23% 1 grade level below, 10% 2 grade levels below, and 31% 3 or more grade levels below. We offer 10 reading intervention classes in our schedule and 5 reading enrichment classes for our 6th graders who are doing well and do not need an intervention. They get an enrichment class. The iReady projections are, if we continue our typical growth for the remainder of this year, we'll have 51% proficiency on SBAC, which will exceed our goal for the year. So we're hoping that stays true. Other key priorities and next steps, attendance. This is in my opinion, the most important. I agree.
You need volunteers to go outside?
Nope, I'm good.
Which should I park on that side?
I would scoot forward.
Attendance, in my opinion, is the most important goal that we have and the most challenging for many reasons. It's important. There's the monetary that we talked about earlier for ADM, but the bigger one is for me is if they're not in the classroom, they can't learn. And so that is one that we will continue to work on. Our goal is 76% regular attenders for this school year. We're currently at 60%, so lower than I would like to be at this point. We have been hit, as many schools have, with some bugs going through town and has hurt our attendance. However, if we increase students within 5% of the 90% goal, that would bring our overall numbers for the year to 78%. What I mean by that is a regular attender is considered a student who attends 90% of the time. If we can get our kids who are currently at 85 to 90 up to that 90%, which is a kind of a sweet zone to target. If we can raise them up, our overall numbers would actually increase to 78% instead of the 60. So a really big increase. So target the yellow zone while we keep the green zone with incentives, parent education, and linking attendance to academic performance. We are part of the Albany Attendance Collaborative, which I think our next meeting's next week, I believe. And our red zone kids, the kids that really miss a lot of school, continue working with FACT and working with those families to help navigate what's the root cause of their poor attendance. Why are they not coming to school? What's the holdup? What can we help them figure out so they are attending? Prepared for high school. We work with West we want to work with West, and West has shown interest with bringing back students who were former Memorial students to talk with our 8th graders about what they wish they had learned or done in middle school that would have made the transition to high school easier. And that's, I think, a key one. And I think it's important to get freshmen who were not that far removed from middle school, and it's still fresh in their head. And so we're going to work on that. And figuring out the key to motivation for middle school students. What is it that motivates middle school students to want to achieve at higher levels? That's a big one. And for 27 years, I've been in a middle school, and it's ever changing and always will be something we strive to do. And then this is where in the past, I kind of jumped ahead of Pete here of Chair Morse, and he has always asked if you could have something, what would it be? So I just added it in there. And it would be me advocating while I have the opportunity for purchasing the adopted math curriculum and getting enough FTE, which I know with the earlier budget talks, maybe this isn't the right time, but we really need math intervention classes in our middle schools for general education students. Our special ed students who have math goals can get that intervention class, but our general ed students currently are not, or at least at Memorial. Points of pride and promise, opportunities for our students. We have things like computer graphics, engineering, careers, makerspace, mini clubs, in advanced classes for our ELA, science and math. Music is does really well at Memorial. Mr. Slansky is amazing, and so are his students. I invite you in September to come in, and I'll happily sit with you to listen to the beginning band those first couple weeks of school, and then listen to them again in May. And the transformation is amazing. Our gardening class and club that we have is well attended, and they do a lot of work. They love to get their hands in the dirt, and they're learning a lot of skills that stay with them throughout their lives with that. And Mr. Shapker, who is a teacher in our alt ed program, recently acquired a $99,993 grant. Many people in the school said they would give him the $7 so he could say he has a $100,000 grant. And Mr. Bolin helped with that, so we definitely give him our thanks as well. And that's for an urban forestry grant, looking at planting like a research area out kind of between the Memorial Building and West Albany Building. There's some space there that's not really used, and it's pretty exciting. A lot of planning that has to be done. What do parents say? Very recently, actually at our last parent club meeting, one of our parents said the front office is very welcoming and my child loves her teachers. That was good to hear. I had an 8th grade student say the staff care about us, they listen to my problems and try to help out, even though there are over 500 students who all have drama. And if you've ever been in a middle school, that student is correct. And kind of a thing at the bottom I put in there is, I don't recall ever having a student come back and telling me about a specific content lesson they learned in the school, but we've had many come back and tell us how they appreciate whoever the person is, a teacher, an admin, a SEA, whatever it is, for making them feel important, feeling heard, and just being there for them. So students may not remember the content we teach them, but they will remember how we make them feel. Whew. Questions?
Just a quick one. Would you be able to give a little brief summary of what Project Basics is? I haven't heard of that before.
Yeah, so we have 10 SEL lessons, so everything from decision making to how you treat people, things like that. But the other piece to it that is, I think, going to be good is they have a program called Advocatar, and it's where students can email in or get online and if there's some problems, whether it's mental health or whatever the problem may be, and it immediately goes to designated people in our school, so myself, our counselors, assistant principal, and we can respond either through email, so if it's at nighttime and we see it, or if it's through the daytime, of course, when we're there. Just an app to improve communication for those kids that maybe are struggling but don't want to go into the office and tell someone. A lot of our kids these days are more comfortable behind a screen to share their feelings, and so just another way to try to connect with kids.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Brad?
Hi, Ken. Oh, by the way, asking is free, so I'm glad you did about your curriculum and stuff. The producing the curriculum might be a little bit more difficult, but the asking is free, so that's good.
Well, I have another list then.
Excellent. Yeah, bring it. Yeah, it's fine. So attendance you listed as your biggest concern and problem. How are you guys addressing this? How are you trying to get kids in classes?
Yeah, so our green zone, we have things like, we have no tardy parties, attendance awards, just different things like that to recognize the kids who are doing what we are hoping they're doing. Our yellow zone kids, we have a variety of things, some of which are a little more individualized, but more so to the parents, whether it's like reminder letters, what can we do to help? I'm trying to think of the other things, just different stuff like that. I need to get more information in my parent letters with attendance to parents and the importance of what the data shows for dropout rates and all those sorts of things. And then our red zone is very individualized for plans for kids on whether it's coming to school, or they're in school but struggling to get to class. We have both those things that we do individualized plans for kids on.
Do you have any dedicated staff that's reaching out to parents and chatting with them and trying to get kids to school and that sort of thing?
Yes, I have an attendance secretary, one of our office ladies whose main job is attendance. She does that, and then we also have Shanna Allen, who is assigned to Memorial. She has a few different schools, and she is our main going to homes and working with families.
Okay, good. I think we just finished our first semester.
Yes.
And I know this is Pete's pet project, so I hope I'm not stepping on your toes, Pete, but how did 8th grade grading go? I mean, they were supposed to be in alignment with the 9th grade, and how did that fare the first go?
Yeah, we had some failures for grades. We had some Fs given out. I think it's hard to say the impact right now, since that was new for first term with the kids. I believe that the ones who are kind of right there, maybe not super motivated, but sort of, I think maybe it helped them. Our kids who, we still have a fair amount of apathy, I think at the middle school level, and how we address that, I'm not sure, but until we address that piece, that kids are held accountable in some way for their grades in middle school, I just don't know that we're going to make a ton of progress on grades. Years ago, Ryan, I know remembers, we had a thing in middle school where if kids didn't pass, they were not going to start at the high school. They were going to start at Albany Options, I believe it was, and it never came to fruition because there were too many kids. But some way to make it meaningful for kids that maybe don't have that support at home, that the parent makes sure it's meaningful to them, is what we're missing. And that to me is the critical piece. How do we get that piece in? Because there are kids that if they're not held accountable to their grades in middle school, they're going to continue to just not do their work.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a couple.
Yeah.
How you doing, Ken?
Good.
Good. What are the My Path lessons? Where do those take place? And how often?
Excellent question. Our math teachers are doing that mostly once a week on Wednesdays.
In regular math class?
In regular math classes. Yep.
Okay. So you don't have additional, I know you already said you need math interventions.
Correct.
You don't. Okay.
Now, I do think our resource math classes are doing some additional with it as well, but yeah, all kids have access to it.
Okay, thank you. Another thing is, unfortunately, we're kind of all getting used to a lot of our kids are below grade level in all of our schools. Most of our kids are below grade level in most of our schools. But this data here of a third of your student body has 3 or more grade levels, that is data I really haven't seen or noticed before. You've been doing this a while, as you said. Does that seem worse to you than, is that?
Absolutely.
And do you have any idea why?
I don't. Well, let me rephrase that. I think it's worse than pre-pandemic.
Okay.
It's coming back. I think that's been that or
But we're still seeing that. That's what we're seeing.
correct. I do.
Okay.
I do see us improving. Not as fast as what I would like, but definitely improvement is happening each year.
Okay. Thanks.
A testament to the elementary schools and what they're doing. So as they're coming into middle, we're seeing kids that are better prepared, and so it's just helping the whole cause.
So you can kind of see like behind the bubble. The bubble's moving forward through the system.
Absolutely.
And we've got reason to hope coming up behind it.
Definitely.
Good. Okay.
Yep.
And because we had the little presentation earlier, tell me about mental health in your school. Are you getting school-based mental health support from the community, and how's it going?
Yeah, we are main, so we have work with Ophelia's Place. They're fantastic. We work with Jackson Street, also fantastic. And then our in-building therapy is through Trillium. Lynn County Mental Health they couldn't support this year because of things they're struggling with. And so Trillium has been working with us, and they've got a decent sized caseload with us, and they've been great.
Okay. Then my last question is, do you feel like you have good data on why kids don't show up for school? Like when you think about the cause of attendance issues, do you feel like you have a good handle on why kids aren't coming, or do you feel like we still don't even really know why the attendance is bad?
Not yet. I don't think I have a good handle on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question.
All right, that's all I got. Thanks.
Okay, hey, thanks. A lot of my questions have been asked already, but some of them, I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to realize if your kids aren't coming to school, they're not going to meet academic levels, right? You know, and one of the things that you read over and over again is our kids aren't coming to school, you know, like they used to, right? And unfortunately, you know, again, it was with good intent, but bad results. You know, our state has changed like truancy laws and all these things that, okay, you know, we're having problems with getting kids to school. How does that help? Taking away a tool to get kids to school, right? You know, so that just doesn't make sense. Hopefully we'll learn from it and move forward and get kids to school. If we get kids to school, we have a chance to have them learn. But, you know, like you said, I mean, how do you get them to learn if they're not in the classroom, right? The new grading way, I think that unfortunately it will take some time to really see value. I think where we're going to see value with this is with the 9th grade on track in a couple of years, you know, because they're going to get to high school and they're already going to realize that you don't get half for nothing, you know? And so hopefully, also, I think another reason we're going to do well and on track is both schools now have 8 classes instead of 7. That's a huge deal, right? I mean, that's another couple credits a year that you can possibly get, you know, so I think we'll do better on track due to that. But I do agree, one of the things we have to figure out in my mind, and you said it, and it's, you know, I mean, we love the carrot. The carrot's always good, right? But unfortunately, every once in a while, you need the stick too. So what happens if you fail 7th and 8th grade, all your classes? If nothing happens, how have you learned from that? You know, can we give them extra stuff? That's great. Let's do that. But if that doesn't work, then what? You know, we have to set our kids up for success. And if we accept failure, that's unfortunate. Thank you, Ken.
You bet. There is one data point I should have shared, and I apologize. At the end of the semester, I looked up Fs and number of students in each grade who had at least one F. And our 6th grade was quite a bit better than our 7th, which was better than our 8th. And so
I think that's always how it's been, because it was unfortunately trained them into the half your grade is for nothing.
Yeah. So hopefully that will now break that cycle.
I think it will, and I honestly think it'll help 9th grade, you know, because they won't have kind of decreased their abilities there. But thank you, Ken, for sharing that. That's a good point.
Thank you, Ken.
Hey, Ken, the one thing I do want to point out is I believe last year you had a 13% increase in your attendance rate.
I think so.
Yeah, so you made up 13 percentage points last year. Now you're working on getting up to the 70% mark and are still showing growth.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are some things that I really want you to be able to celebrate.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, good job.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Okay, we're on to the consent agenda. Personnel license. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the personnel license.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, H2, personal classified. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve personnel classified.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next up, H3, minutes, regular board meeting, 2/10/25. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve minutes from the regular board meeting 2/10/25.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, old business, 2025-27 LBL ESD Local Services Plan.
So we reviewed and talked through this at the last meeting. Nancy was here. I don't recall that you had any questions of Nancy Griffith, the Assistant Superintendent. The LBL Local Service Plan identifies the services that they're going to provide. And they are going through some cuts as well at this time. The ESD receives money based on the student population in all of our area districts, which has declined. And so they are making some reductions this year in terms of budget, but this plan is still the plan intact for you to approve. And that's a process that all local districts are undergoing right now. We're all jointly voting to approve that those will be the services.
I guess my only concern would be if we not making cuts in attendance help.
I think the focus is elsewhere, just from what was said the other day. I don't know that I'm at liberty to say exactly where at this point, because they're still working through some things.
Right.
But I think this would be a motion for you guys, second reading.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve the LBL ESD local service plan as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. All right. We're done with that. Next up is reports, new business, inter-district transfers.
Board Chair and board members, this is our annual report of the number of transfer students from out of district that we plan to accept. We have retained 50 students per grade level, and that is K-12. So we've extended those out of district transfers to include seniors for next year.
And Bruce, I believe this is the exact same as it was last year, correct?
It is, except last year it was K-11. This year we've extended to the 12th grade as well. We hold the same general window with the transfer window for spring, meaning March 1st to April 1st, grades 1 through 12. There's another summer window, July 1st to July 31st, which is K-12 as well. And then we have a winter transfer window for students that want to come mid-year to be November 15th through December 31st. Those dates and date ranges are the same, but again, we're going K-12 instead of just K-11.
I know one of the things that we talked about, it was during our basically strike stuff, we talked about transfers, inter-district and things. This is out of district or both,
This is how
right?
many we will
Inter-dis-
accept in.
Right. So I know one of the things we were thinking about is keeping some spots open and not. Okay. So we've considered that in our planning.
Yeah, we've already looked at our roll-up numbers for transfers within the district. And we looked at our roll-up numbers and have open and closed grades by school to also account for newly enrolled students that move, as well as students that might come from outside of the district.
And really, the only thing I'm looking for is I know that was a discussion. We thought we could improve it, and we've done that.
Yes, as well as the numbers in the fall in August, as soon as we know
Right.
them, that we're working on that. And if you'll recall, the last meeting I shared that it's about 120 kids in and out. There's maybe a 6-student differential positive to the district. And this is just stating, as other districts do to us, this is how many kids we will accept.
Right.
So,
And we can also select which schools students transfer into. So if we have an under-enrolled school
Right.
or an under-enrolled grade level at a particular school, we can say, hey, this is where you can choose to go when we accept the transfer.
Well, I just remember part of the discussion was there's some popular schools and everyone wants to transfer in, and we have to watch that.
That's right.
More closely. So that's all I'm saying. We're watching that.
we're on that.
Is this 50 new students per grade, or does this include the 124 that are already here? Are they included?
This would be new students
Okay,
next
so
year.
the ones we already have are just rolled up and.
That's
they're
correct.
okay.
They're contained within our
resident
roll-up
students and
numbers.
considered that
Okay.
through the,
Okay,
until
so
they
we're open
change
up
their
for 50
status.
new transfer-ins per grade per.
In the last couple of years, have we ever bumped up against the 50 number and said we've exceeded?
I think it is far more likely that we will bump up against classroom capacities in a building before we get to that total.
Okay, I was just curious if that's ever happened, so.
No.
Yeah, so do you mind if I want to run through understand the process. So if somebody says, I want to go to Liberty, third grade, I transfer in, Liberty third grade's full. You say, well, Liberty third grade's full, but we can offer you a spot at Periwinkle third grade. They say, it's not going to work for me, never mind, or I'll take it. Is that how that works?
That's
how it works.
correct.
And what we need to watch is where that number is that we make that decision, right?
So that there's
that's the
cushion.
issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, next up, middle school sports. Sounds like we got one of the greats. Come on up, guys.
Yeah.
Make your, so really had talked to these gentlemen, wanted them to make a presentation. It seems like, and really what, for me and the rest of the board members, at least ones I've talked to, this having money to the middle schools has been in existence. This is the 4th year, and it hasn't been exactly optimum. And so we want to make sure it's being used and it's being utilized well, because I think it's one of the ways that maybe we get kids to attend. You know, maybe it's one of the ways we get kids to have better behavior. If their coaches and stuff are in the building and can kind of tell Johnny or Susan, hey, maybe you need to do this right, or you can't compete, you know, on the weekend or whenever it is. But Mr. Brody, thank you.
Mr. Brody, can we beg your indulgence for just a minute while we perhaps can put your presentation on the screen?
That'd be fantastic, yeah.
It should be.
There it is. Perfect.
Yep.
Wow.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brody Harvey. I am the club director for the West Albany Mac Club. I've had kids in the program for 11 years now, and I've been a volunteer for most of that time. I also have with me some members of the high school coaching staff from West Albany, Casey Horn and Brian Barker, and we did have Troy Thomas here from South Albany, but he was not able to stay the whole time. I wanted to start by saying I've already got a $39,000 budget savings in your wrestling budget estimate. The high school coaches have confirmed we have enough wrestling mats that we could supply all the middle schools with wrestling mats for a wrestling season.
Fantastic.
Yep. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about West Albany Mac Club and our middle school program. We are a not-for-profit club with an all-volunteer coaching staff. For the entire program, we provide wrestling opportunities for boys and girls, 4 years old through 8th grade. We run 3 separate practice times throughout the week for the different age groups. The season runs November through March. We are a USA Wrestling sanctioned club. We run practices at Memorial Middle School for the middle school group and at West Albany High School in the wrestling room for our elementary school program. We have preseason meets for our middle school program that start in November and run through January. And then we currently participate in a middle school league through our MAC club called the Capital Junior Conference, or the CJC. And that starts in February and runs through March. And throughout the season, there are optional weekend tournaments that are sanctioned by Oregon Wrestling Association that we tell the kids that they're able to go to if they want. We have 71 middle school wrestlers competing from various schools this season, and we charge a club fee of $50 to participate. In 2021, through West Albany Mac Club, we started our middle school program with a separate middle school practice time with after-school practice, and I wanted to thank Principal Gilbert for supporting us in that endeavor. And the goal was to grow the program, and for me personally, it was provide more opportunities for my kids and their teammates to get to compete. So a little bit about the league that we currently participate in with the middle school program. There are 12 schools. They're all listed there, and as you can see, there are several schools from Mid-Willamette Special District 3 represented in that league. Each of these teams host 2 to 3 multi-team wrestling meets during the week throughout the course of the season, where kids will get typically 3 matches. It's an 8-week season that I mentioned, begins in February and concludes with the middle school state wrestling championships in mid-March. Additionally, the Salem Kaiser, they have their own middle school league, so McKay, who's from our district, competes in that league. And in 2021, we had asked if we could join through our MAC club, and they accepted us into the league, and we've been able to compete since. And there's a large number of kids competing each week, 550 student athletes for this league. So what does middle school wrestling look like for Albany? The chart on the left shows the numbers of kids we've had participating the last 3 seasons and this current season. The orange part of the bar chart is girl wrestlers, and then the blue is boy wrestlers. We've been averaging about 15 girls each season participating and about 50 boys. The chart in our average is about 66 wrestlers per season coming to our practices at Memorial Middle School. And they're coming from all the different schools. We're predominantly made up of kids from Memorial and North Albany. That's depicted on the chart at the right, with a handful of kids coming from Calapooya and Timber Ridge, and we've got some kids coming from other schools as well. And this is an increase of where we were as a club before we started running this middle school program. We had about a dozen middle schoolers competing in our MAC club. So we saw tremendous growth by adding the after-school middle school program. Some of the results that we're proud of that we've seen, the most notable was in 2023, our North Albany girls team finished 4th as a team at the Oregon Middle School State Championship. And that's a tournament where they don't separate middle schools by classification. You're competing against every middle school in the state. And so it's a tremendous accomplishment for a team to place. And our North Albany Middle School girls did that just a few years ago. Over the last 3 seasons since we've been running the program, we've had 24 state qualifiers, and we've had 13 state placers. So we're very proud of that. And we've also started to see some benefits for our high school program. My oldest son, who's a sophomore this year, his freshman year, I think they had close to 120 wrestlers come out for high school wrestling. Coach Horn had to run 2 wrestling rooms to fit all the kids, and they've continued to do that this season. And they had a near record number of state qualifiers this year for the high school team. So we put together just our idea and what we thought a GAPS middle school league might look like. Our vision was a 9-week season commencing in November, where each team would have a duel against all the other middle schools, 1 home, 1 away, so that would be 6 league duels per team, and the season would conclude with an all-city championship tournament in January. And then as an option for teams that wanted to continue, they could opt into the Capital Junior Conference that we compete in with the other schools from around the league. In terms of cost, it looked like you guys have done quite a bit of homework. We estimated $3,000 if you were going to buy full singlets for every school. We have an inventory of singlets at West. We have singlets that say Memorial Bears. We have singlets that say North Albany Tigers, as well as West Albany Mac Club singlets. So not necessarily a requirement. We'd be happy to wrestle in t-shirts and other athletic gear. We do that every day at practice. Officials would probably run around $3,000 for the singlets or for the season to run the duels and the tournament, and then coaches' stipends and transportation, as well as miscellaneous supplies to set up the mats, headgear, cleaning supplies, first aid. And we think you'd see around 60 athletes per school if you ran the league this way.
So one of the things I'm curious about, and I know, in high school I was a basketballer. Probably should have been a wrestler, but I was a basketball person. And when I was there weren't women wrestlers, but now that's the growth. The women wrestlers are the growth. Casey, what is do you know the breakdown for the high schools?
For our high school, we had roughly, this year we finished with about 75 wrestlers. we had about 30 novice wrestlers, so first-year wrestlers. And then we had about 30 of our boys that were in the varsity JV room. And then our girls, we just sent 13 girls to the regional tournament this last week. But we started the year with 31 girls. Our numbers dropped significantly because of injuries. We had about 7 girls that were hurt, and so they didn't finish, or they stuck around with us. But so our 13 girls that finished, we had a good showing at the regional tournament last weekend.
How does South for that? What kind of numbers do they have? You any idea?
Coach Thomas is in his second year there. He's struggling a little bit because at the beginning of the season, what happened during the strike, and so he wasn't necessarily in the room, and so the numbers fluctuated a little bit for him, and so he's still working on building that program up. He doesn't have a MAC club, so he's also starting the MAC club fresh the last 2 years. So he's running, I think he said 30 to 40 kids in his MAC club right now. And that's K-12 or K-8.
At the middle school level, I can comment that we're starting to see enough girls at our middle school meets that we can do girls-only brackets. And that wasn't the case just a few years ago. So we're seeing a lot of growth at the middle school level right now with the girls.
Student board members, have you guys gone to meets at all? No? Yes? You have? I went as a high school kid, but now it's, wow, it's pretty neat. It got set up 3 normally, but now it's like 6. I went to a meet just a little while ago, and you guys had 6 going on at once. You were holding regional or something, but it was pretty neat. And we host middle school, state, and regional here.
So last year we were asked by the state to host the middle school regional for the Willamette region, and then as well as the state tournament. And so technically they have asked West Albany to be in charge of the entire state of middle school wrestling, of deciding when we're going to host and the dates. And so we decide who gets the regionals. There's 5 different regionals, and we get to help host and find the hosts at the different events. And then they all come back to West Albany and have the state meet at our school. And
I really, the idea of city champ, whether it be basketball, soccer, whatever, that's pretty cool. I know as a middle schooler, hey, yeah, our team won city champ. That would be pretty neat. Well, I mean, the real thing, at least for me and any board members else who want to talk about it, I mean, I just want us to get this going. It's not a huge cost. We're here from everybody, middle schoolers especially, right? Are kind of that lost age of let's get the kids to come to school, right? This kind of stuff, whether it be a club, whether it be a sport, whether it be an activity, these are the kind of things that make kids want to come to school, and they make them want to listen to Principal Gilbert a little bit more, right? Because he's going to do whatever he's going to do and say, hey, you can't compete this week or something, I mean, all kids want positive reinforcement, but sometimes they also need a little consequence if they don't, right? I mean, we all are that. Go ahead, Casey.
so on that note, Coach Lean, our athletic director at West, he gives us weekly attendance reports and weekly grade checks. And we, on our varsity, so we had 2 rooms. We had the novice room, and then we had the varsity JV room. And the girls will practice with the boys on both sets of rooms. So if you're novice, you'll be in the novice room, boys. And so in our varsity JV room, we had 3 wrestlers that attendance was at 62%, and everybody else was 77 or higher. And there was like 2 kids that were 77% of attendance, and then everybody was in the 90s. So we're talking very small handful of kids that were not attending school, and those were a couple seniors going through some life-changing events. And so I know that Ken and his staff have come over because my son wrestled in middle school, and they've come over to our kids, and the teachers will come into practice, and they'll hey, little Johnny's struggling today. Can you guys make sure Johnny gets a little extra running, or talk to Johnny? And it's very important for our community of our family atmosphere that we set in our wrestling room, is that we are together and we're going to take care of each other and we need to be here, and accountability is really important. And so it's important in our program, and I know at the middle school, we're getting attendance rates are up for us.
I think that's one of the biggest reasons. I mean, we all learn from sports or activities or clubs or whatever, dance, theater, but one of the biggest things I think we can do is we're having a hard time getting butts in seats, basically, right? So if we can give them an opportunity to, hey, if you don't come this week school, you're not going to get to compete, or you're not going to get to play your role, or you're not, those are important things for us to get our kids there. They want to listen to our coaches and I think that's the whole reason we put this money back to it, right? So I just think it's really important. I really, before the end of the year, I think we're going to decide on where we're going to put money. And I think the idea is so we can invigorate our students to realize how important coming to school is, so they can also do the curriculars.
Can I ask a couple questions, Pete?
Yeah, of course.
So really could see when I saw this PowerPoint today, just the evidence of commitment and care for kids, and you're magneting them, and I just really appreciate that. Just a few technical questions. Where in the building do you do this? Is it in the gym? How does that work out?
So at Memorial, we practice in the small gym. We have to set up mats every day, and so we make the kids do that. They're responsible for setting them up. And then at the end of practice, we tear them down and put them back away. They're stored in the fitness center. If you're familiar with Memorial, there's a little fitness center on the back side of the locker rooms. And so that's just our part of our practice every day, is setting up and tearing down the mats. Kids report to the locker room after school and get dressed down for wrestling, get their wrestling shoes on. We clean the mats and we practice.
Do you see in a club setting, kids from the other 10 schools or whatever, do you see them competing through the winter, and are they engaged in clubs from November on until the formal season begins?
Yes, I mean, we're seeing that now, where we've got kids coming from every middle school.
No, I'm talking about your opponents. I've got another
Our
question
opponents.
about where the kids come from.
Yes.
So in other words, the middle schools seem like they have a set season.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
there participation or interaction between you guys and them? December, January?
Yeah, through their MAC clubs.
Okay.
So a lot of times the middle schools overlap a lot, the coaches overlap with the MAC club coaches. And so when I talk about our preseason meets, those are just informal meets that I'll reach out to the MAC club middle school coach, and they'll invite a couple teams together and we'll run a middle school meet.
Okay. So another question. Wrestlers, almost more than any other sport, it's very individual. They will often seek out really knowledgeable people, and there's often some mojo around having a bunch of kids there, a lot of social interaction as well as good teaching. Do you see the potential so I noticed that Calapooya and Timber have pretty low participation rates, and there's just the beginning of a club on the south side?
Yes, they've had a MAC club in the past, and there's been a lot of turnover, and they do have, like Casey said, I think around 30 kids that were in their MAC club this year, mainly elementary school students, only a few middle schoolers, and they've attended some of our middle school meets, but they've got more numbers at the elementary school level. And one of the challenges with Timber Ridge is their release time being a little bit later, so their kids have a little bit harder time getting over there. But
So we are aware of that, and we're looking at that. But no guarantees, obviously, because there's a limit on bus drivers right now.
But we just tell those kids, just come to practice when you can, and they come in, they just jump in and start practicing. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys for your work.
Casey, you got something else?
On Bruce's slide, he talked about how no one volunteered to be a coach for wrestling necessarily. And on the slide too, no one's really going to jump up to say I want to wrestle either. And it's little bit of talking to and convincing a little bit to come out for the sport. The one thing that Mrs. Osborne's really good at when she was our principal was she hired people to fill certain roles. And so looking for coaches to help us in SEA positions or further down the line of teaching. and then getting the SEAs to become teachers, vice versa. But a lot of our coaches, even in my own special education program that are at West, they're coaches and my assistants in there are coaches in our building. And so I know that we can find coaches. I don't want that to be a panic.
Yeah, it wasn't a panic. I only had 56 middle school staff members across the district, so the response rate was not very high. And I said right out of the gate that we would have to go out and search and do more work. And I know that there were more people that coached track and field and cross country than what were listed on that survey. Totally inadequate, right? So.
And so I agree with what you're saying, Casey. That's going to be a slow build though, right?
Totally, yes.
Okay.
And we currently are one of the bigger coaching staffs in our conference, let alone state. We have about 15 coaches on our staff that volunteer and be part of our program. And I know a few of them would also go down to the middle school and help out too.
So another question, and I know we've talked about this, but I know for me, and I think most people's experiences in sports or clubs or whatever, is I had some teammates of mine in different sports that probably wouldn't have come to school and probably wouldn't have been as well behaved if they didn't have some coaches or club members or whatever in their life. And I would say it was probably a higher percentage than those that didn't participate in those things, you know? That has not changed, correct?
Yeah. Sports are saving a lot of kids, and I think even our coaches and our relationships that we have with our students or wrestlers or athletes are what are keeping our kids in the schools.
Well said. I agree.
Any other?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. I know it was the end. I appreciate it. You guys
Thanks
did
for being
good.
here late.
Thank you very much. Do I hear a motion?
I don't know, it's been so much fun, we should just hang out for a while.
We can motion for you to do so.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, everybody.
Ken, thank you.